Thanks for joining me in the kitchen today. You know, this year with COVID, it feels like everyone this winter is out doing outdoor activities, whether that's skiing, snowshoeing, or just playing with the kids out in the snow somewhere. It's a wonderful thing to see, but you know, the appetites get really big when you come in from being in the outdoors all day, and a nice thing to warm up to is a great bowl of soup. Today I'm going to make a split pea and ham soup. We had cooked a ham during Christmas, and I kept a lot of meat on the bone and put it in the freezer, and now I've pulled it out and we're going to make a soup out of it. So I've got a Dutch oven sitting on the stove. We're going to put the ham just into it. There we go. It's still a little bit frozen, but it's going to thaw as we cook it. And then we're going to add to it about 3 onions that I've diced up. And I have a couple of cups of split peas. I've taken these and I've rinsed them out first. You should always rinse out any of your dried peas or beans before you cook with them. So we're going to put them into the pot. There we go. And we'll add about, maybe about a quart and a half of water in. We can add more water as we need to. There we go. Now all I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it to simmer, and we're going to leave it alone. We'll put the lid on and we'll leave it for about 3 hours. If you go to 4 hours, it's not a big deal. We just want that to cook really nicely down and have all that meat break apart from off the ham bone. We're not going to be adding any salt because we have all the salt is already inside the ham, and there's a lot of good smoky flavor to it, so we want to cook it with the bone and let all that flavor come out. While the soup's simmering, I'm going to make a garlic parmesan monkey bread. It's really easy to do, and it's a really fun bread to have with a pot of soup. Now let's get started on making the dough for the monkey bread. I'm just going to make a real basic dough, same kind I'd use for a pizza or if I'm making buns. I'm going to add a couple of cups of all-purpose flour. There we go. Then we're going to need about a teaspoon of salt we'll add to it. And about a teaspoon of instant yeast. There we are. Let's just mix this around with a fork. Now let's add a couple of teaspoons of oil. Olive oil or regular oil, doesn't matter. There we go. And I'm going to add some warm water. When you're using water to make a rising dough, you need water that's about lukewarm. If it's too hot, you're going to kill your yeast. So rule of thumb is it'd be about the temperature that you bathe the baby in. So if you're running your tap, it's nice and comfortable underneath, it's not hot for you, that's going to be a good temperature for you. We'll just start by adding a little bit. Let's mix it around until it starts to clump up. Now there's no exact measurement when you're making dough. You got to go a little bit by feel. Here, if you see, it's starting to absorb the liquid. Okay, that's about as much as I can do with a fork right now. That's probably going to be all the water we're going to need. So I'm going to take the fork out. I'm going to add a little bit more flour while it's still in the bowl. I got good washed hands, and I'm going to start to mix it around and knead it a little bit while it's in the bowl. Okay, when it's absorbed that amount of flour, let's take a little bit more flour here. Let's put it on the table. There we go. Put that off to the side. Let's take our dough, put it on top. And we can start to now knead and work the dough. If you've got kids, this is a great thing to get them going on. It's really hands-on. They can't go wrong with it. Really just turning it over, pushing down as if you're doing CPR on bread. And that's all there is to it. You're going to want to knead your dough for 5-10 minutes. I'll show you when it gets towards the end. What you're trying to achieve is where it's going to start to feel elasticy, and then you know that it's already it's been kneaded enough, and all the ingredients are combined well. If it starts to stick to the bottom, just add a little bit more flour with your hand. Now you'll know your dough is at the right consistency and you've kneaded enough when it starts to get to where you can push and poke your finger in, and you see it starts to bounce back up. Now it's got that elastic-ness to it, if that's a cooking term, I don't know. But you've got proper dough when you can push in and it wants to push itself back out. So we're gonna let this rise. We're gonna take our piece of dough. I have a bowl where I've oiled it just very lightly. I'll stick the dough inside. I want to cover it. I'm just going to use a bowl turned over to cover it. You can use saran wrap if you want. We're going to cover it. I'll put it close to where the pea soup is cooking, so it gets a little bit of the heat coming off of there. We're going to let that dough rise for maybe an hour, hour and a half, basically until it's at least doubled in its size. And then we're going to move to the next step of making the monkey bread. It's been about an hour and a half. The dough has doubled in size, and we're going to start to get together the ingredients we're going to need so we can put this monkey bread together so it can do its final rise. So I'm going to start with a metal bowl. I'm going to crack 2 eggs into here. Then we're going to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, about 4 teaspoons of finely chopped green onions, and then a couple tablespoons of dried parsley. Okay, let's put that in. Let's give it a mix. And we'll add one last ingredient, which is about 5 tablespoons of melted butter. Combine all this. And we'll tuck it to the side for a minute. Let's put our dough down here. Before we do that, let's sprinkle a little bit of flour. Keep it from sticking. There we go. And we can just turn our bowl over. It'll come down. And what we're going to do is we're going to slice it into a couple of chunks. Then I want to roll these out just to make them into a tube. There we go. And I'm going to cut these into about 1-inch pieces. I have a greased bundt pan. If you don't have a bundt pan, you can just use a loaf pan. That'll work just fine. And what we're going to do is we're going to take each of these. We'll put them into our mixture that coats them, and we will stick them in and arrange a layer. When I have one layer down, I'm going to take some Parmesan cheese. I have about a 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese here, freshly grated. And I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit over top of that first layer. And I'm going to keep doing this with the rest of the dough. I'll cut more pieces. I'll put another layer. I'll put a little bit more Parmesan. I'll dip them each time. And then after that's complete, we're going to let this rise again until it doubles, so it'll be filling the pan completely. Now we've got all the monkey bread pieces together. I'm going to put some saran wrap over top of this. I'm going to let it rise for maybe 45 minutes to an hour. In the meantime, I'm going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Once this is risen, we're going to put it inside the oven and it'll be ready to go. Our monkey bread is risen for the second time. We'll take the saran off now, and it's ready to go in the oven. I've got the oven preheated at 350 degrees. We'll put it in for about 30 minutes, but we're going to check at 30 minutes. When it's nice and golden brown, we'll take it out. The soup will be ready, and we're all set to eat. The soup's been simmering for about 3 hours now. It smells absolutely wonderful inside here. I'm going to take the lid off. I'm going to remove the ham bone and the pieces of ham meat that have sort of fallen apart as they've been cooking. Oh, there we go. That looks perfect. I'm going to set this to the side to cool for a while, then I'll break apart the meat, I'll put it back in. In the meantime, I'm going to add the final ingredients. I've got maybe about 2 cups of carrots chopped up finely. I'm going to put them inside. It's a split pea soup, but I like to add a little bit more peas, so I'm putting in a couple of cups of frozen peas into here as well. This is just going to add a little bit more texture to the soup because the split peas themselves have all broken down and formed that thickness inside. We'll give it a stir. We'll put the lid back on, cook it for about another 10 minutes just to get the carrots cooked up, and then we will add the meat back in and we'll be ready to go. Well, thanks for joining me in the kitchen today. There's nothing like coming back from a cold day, being outside, to a warm bowl of split pea and ham soup. The monkey bread that I just taken out of the oven, you can break it apart with your hands. It'll just come apart in small little nuggets. You can dip it in the soup or eat it by itself. Thanks very much. Have yourself a wonderful week and stay safe.